Hey guys, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And it is Thursday, time for another live chat. So I am so excited to be back with you today to talk about another really popular topic for genealogy research, and that is trying to read that old handwriting in those historical documents. So we're going to get to that in just a bit. We're going to give people a chance to come in to view us and find us. So we'll give you guys just a few minutes. Hey, Bill is from Long Island, New York. Wonderful. As you guys can probably tell, if you have watched me before, you know that I am back in my home office, as you can see behind me. I have spent the last almost 3 weeks in Texas helping my daughter who had fractured an elbow. She's doing fabulous, and I am thankful to be for that and to be back home as well in my home here in North Carolina. I was so worried about messing up my timing and schedule of things since I always work on Eastern time, in the Eastern time zone, and I was actually in the Central time zone, and it got a little crazy there. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are new to Are You My Cousin? If you are just finding me because somebody shared it with you, or you just happen to be scrolling through YouTube and happen to see this, I want to welcome you and tell you I really appreciate you watching today. If you haven't read any of Are You My Cousin, feel free to, I would encourage you to hop over after the video, after the live chat, and check out the website. I have a lot of articles over there, blog posts that share on a variety of topics. There are a lot of how-to, a lot of tutorials over there, and it's all free there as well. So, and also, guys, if you're not, you might want to get on my email list. I send out an email to everyone on my email list on Mondays to kind of let you know what's happening in the genealogy world, what's happening in the Are You My Cousin world, I should say. But I want to encourage you not to worry that I do not send spam. I do not send fluff. I only send good stuff, and it's resources that can help you research genealogy, help you find me on the web when it comes for lives like this. So I would encourage you to do that if you're so inclined. Hey, Martha. Oh, thanks, Martha. It is good to be home. And Karen, hello. How are you? Wonderful. So if you are new and you want to, and you have not ever participated before, feel free to leave a comment. I do watch those as we talk, and I can respond back to those. If you are watching on the replay of this on YouTube, guys, just know that any links that we talk about, you will find them in the description below. So you will be able to find those links. Just know that they're in the description below this. So, guys, I had a really interesting thing, and I wanted to kind of ask what you guys did with this before I jump into the handwriting topic. But as you know, as I said, I had been to Texas to help my daughter, and I literally left kind of on a dime, so to speak. You know, she needed me, so I got my plane ticket and I went out there. So flying during a pandemic is really interesting, but everything went well, and you know, all that was perfectly fine. So, but I was literally able to continue my research almost seamlessly out in Texas, even though I wasn't at my home office. And I realized that is because, and I've always known this, I use Google Drive heavily. So I do a lot of cloud-based storage, and that's where I work through a lot. And of course, I had Ancestry, and I have everything synced across my devices. And I was kind of wondering, how many of you guys use Google Drive? Is for part of your research, for keeping things going, or do you use Trello for organizing your research and being able to take it with you on a dime? I literally really didn't miss a beat when it came from changing locations very unexpectedly. So I thought that was an interesting thing, because if you guys are interested, I'm happy to do maybe a blog post or some lives on that topic about how to be able to do it in the cloud, genealogy in the cloud, so to speak, so that you can move place to place and be able not to really miss a beat on your research. So any thoughts on that? Pop it in the comments. I'd love to just kind of pick your brain a little bit and see what that is and what's going on today on your thoughts with that. So, and I will tell you, Bill says back up to Microsoft OneDrive. Yeah, so OneDrive, similar thing. Definitely, you can take it with you and sync across the drive. Dave uses Microsoft OneDrive as well. Yeah, I know a lot of people do use OneDrive. I think I just got started with Google and the Google Drive, and that's just sort of how I did. I also use Dropbox, guys. That's another tool out there for it. So I would highly encourage that. One, I don't lose anything, and two, it does go with me. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. I thought that was kind of it kind of made me realize the importance of having things that would sync across my devices like that. So anyway, all right, well, let's get started, guys. I will tell you there are storms in the area where I am broadcasting from, so should anything go wonky, we're going to blame it on the thunderstorms. So, but fingers crossed, we're all good. So we're talking about handwriting today, guys, and I will tell you I have horrible handwriting, as I was told as a child. And so our ancestors really were no better. I guess I actually probably inherited my handwriting from my ancestors. At least I like to say that. But there are definitely some tips that I can share with you, and I'd like to hear some of your tips as well as we go along that will help in reading and deciphering documents, because it is hard. Documents that might be, it could be they're faded, it could be they, partially ripped. It could be poor handwriting. It could be what we would consider misspellings, even though spelling really wasn't standardized for a lot of those records. And it makes it really hard to read. And so I'm going to go ahead and share you my absolute favorite tip right up front, guys. And that is, when you are working with a document and the handwriting is a little difficult, is to read the document out loud. Okay, if you're in the archives, do it quietly, but speak it out loud as you go. It does a couple things for you. For one thing, it will slow you down because you're trying to sound out the words and you're seeing them there, and to actually say them will actually slow you down, which is a good thing. It gives you time to work through it and keep flowing that way. I find that very helpful, particularly with legal documents, and then also with when I'm in, like, say, a special collections, or actually I happen to have a lot of letters from my ancestors that were from back in the early 1900s. And so I can read those, but they're hard to read because they wrote like they talked. That's okay. But they were not always, the grammar was not what we would have. And so I didn't understand the words. I couldn't make them out, or I just couldn't figure it out. So when I started to read those family letters out loud, it slowed me down, and then I started to speak them phonetically, because I think most of us were raised to learn to read and to learn, we learned phonetics when it came to reading. I know there was a while there where my kids, they were not teaching phonetics, but I think they've gone back to it, at least I hope so. But when I tried to sound out the words and literally out loud, so I could not only speak it but hear it, I started to recognize the words. So here's a really good one for you guys. I kept coming across this word spelled Y-O-U-A-L. And sometimes it was just Y-U-A-L. I could not figure out what that was for anything. I kept going, I kind of still got the gist of the letter, but I was like, what is this word that keeps popping up, and what am I missing? Am I missing a big meaning because I don't know the word? So I started to read it out loud. And so these were letters frequently between young adults, say 18, 19, 20, early 20s, in the late 1910s, early 1920s. And so I started to read those out loud. And do you know what that turned out to be? It turned out to be you all. Now, we are from the South, but they weren't saying y'all. It was sort of, and he wasn't really saying you all, but it was kind of a y'all real fast. And so when I started reading that out loud, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so then I was able to start, I thought, okay, if that's how he's spelling that particular you all, then how else? It helped me to recognize other spellings of other kind of contractions or shortened terms that get slurred through with the Southern speech, because this was a Southern ancestor that I had. And so I thought that was a really unique thing. I was like, what in the world could this be? And I'm embarrassed to tell you how long it was that I actually stared at that. So absolutely, you want to read the documents out loud and and say them phonetically if possible. So that'll help you quite a bit. Another thing that will help you as well is to make sure you're understanding all the abbreviations, because sometimes in handwritings you may miss something, but it may be an abbreviation and it may not be the full word. So if you're understanding what some common abbreviations were, particularly in legal documents, more so than say like personal letters or diaries or journals, that type of thing, that's going to help you be able to decipher some of those words that you might not otherwise recognize. Another thing that helps kind of along those lines is to compare letters. So when you've got a word and you're trying to decipher what it really means, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, is that an I? Is it an E? Is it an A? Is it an O that didn't get closed? Or look back in the earlier places in the document to a word that you absolutely know 100% that has that same letter in it, and then compare those letters, and that will help you decide what that letter is in that word, that unknown word. So if you're unsure when you're reading the document and you have this word and you're not sure, is that an E, or is it an O, but it didn't get closed all the way, so now it looks like you have an I and an E together, or something like that. Go back to a word that you know that has that E in it, that you know has an E in it, that was written by that person, and see if you can compare and see any similarities. That's going to help a lot with that. The other thing that I will do sometimes is, just like when I'm researching census records, and I will have blank census forms beside me so that I can read the headings and make sure I'm getting the right, understanding it correctly, I will pull up some of the older script alphabets. So I might Google 19th century handwriting alphabet, and I'll have that, I might print that off and have it beside me, so that if I'm reading something and I'm not really sure about the formation of a letter, then I can compare to how that letter might have been made for that time period. My last name is actually one of those things that can trip me up, because my last name, as you know, is Lisson, Lisson. Well, there is also a surname that is quite common to research. I believe it's in England or the English area, where it is Sisson, Sisson, one letter difference. And when you look at some of those older alphabets in the script, the L and the S look very similar and can easily be mistaken. So it is important to if you're struggling, check and see. It could be that letter isn't what you thought it was, because for that time period they made the S this way and the L another way. So that's a way to kind of look at that and be able to compare what's going on. So I have another comment. Hey, Donna, you're watching me in the public shopping line. Oh my gosh. All right. You're going to get your groceries after your, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Just don't get too hot. I hope you have the air conditioning running down there, Donna. That's so sweet. So make sure, if you can put those beside you, it's a simple Google search. Just Google 19th century or 18th century, whichever time period you're working in, 19th century alphabet script, and you will come up with a lot. You will find it comes up quite easily, and you will be able to print those off so that you can see those and have those next to you while you research. It will go a long ways and just making life a little bit easier for you. You know, guys, I like to have those things prepared ahead of time so that when it comes to researching, you can just get right to it and not struggle quite so much with that. Now, another thing that you can do when you have that, and I've talked about this in the recent blog post, in fact, I'll put that in the comment section here on this, when you end up with the really faded documents, and I find this a lot with, for whatever reason, my ancestors, and it seems like a lot of folks did, they wrote in pencil. And so, 100 years later, that's starting to look a little faded, obviously. And it can be really hard to decipher it just because they're faded. And then handwriting and throw in bad handwriting, throw in bad eyes, not being able to decipher that. And so what I like to do at that point is I do like to convert that document, and I always have them scanned in digitally. If it's not a JPEG or an image type of file, I'll go ahead and convert it to an image file so that then I can run it through something like a photo editing software like vivid-pix Restore, that's the one that I use. You can use PicMonkey, which I think is a subscription site now. You can use a variety of different, I think there's Photoshop, of course, things like that. I just choose to use vivid-pix because, well, I like it and it seems to work really well for me. But I can go in there and then I can adjust contrast. I can lighten things up. I can and so that will help to bring out the letters, particularly if I increase the contrast. Maybe sometimes some of those older documents, the paper has darkened, so you can lighten that background a little bit and make it easier to read. So I will do that. The other thing, if nothing else, when you can zoom in on those photos and zoom in on those documents, that goes a long ways to helping read these documents, particularly online. But I struggle so much sometimes, before I started doing that, because there just wasn't enough contrast in the documents if it was really faded, and then I will bring that up. You can also do that with, so if you get a copy of or print a copy of a record off of microfilm, you can do the same thing. I mean, it's a bit of an extra step, but you can print that, and then you can digitize that into a JPEG file. You can scan it and make it into an image file and then upload it. So it's a lot of steps there. So if you're not getting a really good image and enough contrast on the microfilm machine, you can get some, then you can run it through any kind of photo editing software that you like to use and get a little more contrast that way. So that's going to be a real big help to make it easier to read. I don't know about you guys, but I have a really hard time reading some of the microfilm. I think we've done it a lot and we know how to do it, but it can be really tough until you can really clean those documents up a little bit there. So, hey, Karen. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying the tips. You're a new researcher. Sometimes the mountains of information get daunting, but you're determined. Yes, be determined, guys. Be determined. And actually, Karen, I will tell you, this brings me to a really important tip that I would tell you not to discount, and that is to practice. Guys, sometimes there is no other substitute other than you just have to start reading the documents. So you start to get familiar with how court documents are written for the area that you research. You start to be familiar with the terminology and the structure of how a will might be set up or how the estate records run. And sometimes it is just a matter of reading and getting used to reading those old documents. I kind of had not realized the importance of that until I was showing some family members some of the older documents and the family, some old wills and things like that. And they're like, how in the world do you read this? And I thought, I struggled with that. I had a hard time reading this when I first started. But after years of doing it, practice, I won't say makes perfect, but it certainly got me a lot further along, and I'm able to read those records. I can tell you it is helpful when you are researching and maybe you're in the court records, when the clerk has written. Well, if the clerk has been a clerk for a lot of years, then you start to recognize his handwriting in the documents, and that can be helpful as well. So that's those would be the tips that I would give you, whether you are a new researcher like Karen, or whether you've been doing this for a while. And sometimes I'm always learning tips, guys. That's one of the reasons I love doing these lives, is because a lot of times I get information from you guys that I didn't know before. So it's helpful to me to learn from you guys as well. Everybody has some great tips for how they have learned and figured out what to do. So let's just kind of recap this a little bit. I'll bring this kind of full circle here. You want to, first of all, just read it out loud. Start reading it out loud and hear the words, and you'll start to kind of anticipate what some of those words might be or could be in your reading as you go. Make sure you are familiar with some of the abbreviations. There are a lot of common abbreviations such as B for born, BAP for baptized in the former records, things like that. If you are fortunate enough to have old family letters, old diaries in the family, pay attention to what you think might be abbreviations and see if you can figure those out, because people kind of made up their own. I know I have my own little shorthand for when I'm taking notes on things, or if I'm writing, just, writing for my own pleasure and my own purposes in my journal and stuff. I have my own shorthand that I'm not sure anybody else will really figure out. Well, they probably could, but if you're starting to notice that, again, pay attention to it to see if you can decipher what it means, but be aware that people kind of had their own shorthand for stuff like that as well in the records. So you definitely want to do that. You want to compare unknown, the letter or word in question with other letters or words that you actually already know that were written by that person. So, check the rest of the document to see what words might be similar, what letters might be the same, and to determine how that particular writer wrote his W's or wrote the M's, because M's and W's sometimes in sloppy handwriting start to look alike. Well, how did that particular writer do his? Compare with words that you already know that are in the document as well. And then lastly, you definitely, print off some sheets for like the different scripts for the different time periods, and have them beside you. Be aware of letters that could look the same, that look different than what they would look today, and you're not recognizing them simply because you didn't realize that an S can look very much like an L. A capital S can look very much like a capital L in 18th century handwriting. So look at those and just have it close by so you can, it's just a good reference piece of material to have next to you. And then certainly you can go ahead and put them into convert them into a digital file, a photo image, and so that you can put them through a photo editing software. That is probably reading aloud and putting things through photo editing software. Those are probably the two most common things that I do, or the most frequent things I do when it comes to reading documents, and it really helps a lot. And then guys, really, if nothing else, if you do nothing else, just practice. Just get used to being in the records, and the more you do, I promise, the easier it gets. And then it's really quite interesting. You guys know I like to read, you could find me reading, court records from 100 years ago just because I think they're funny and interesting, because it's sort of like reality TV after all. And so it's a great way to hone those skills for deciphering handwriting, is just start reading documents. They don't even have to be yours, but it's a great way to start. Okay, guys, that is what I have for you today. I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button down in the bottom right-hand corner so that you don't miss any videos that I post. I do post twice a week at the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. And I do post new blog posts consistently over on the Are You My Cousin website. I'd love to have you find me in one or both places, whichever is more convenient for you. That would be great. And sure, absolutely, you can always follow on the Facebook page, because I will post when I'm doing lives and that kind of thing as well there. So have a fantastic day. If you have any comments, whether you're watching this, especially if you're watching this after, when it's no longer live, feel free to still leave a comment below. I do monitor the comments and keep those, pay attention to those after we're no longer live. So I'm happy to address questions there as well. So guys, go out. If you have any questions right now, this is the time, or we'll be wrapping up shortly here in a minute. Like I said, I'm glad to be back home in North Carolina. You will be seeing my daughter in some future videos, because while I was out there, we made a couple things together. So that'll be a lot of fun to bring her on and have some fun on the YouTube channel with my daughter. So that'll be kind of cool. We're excited about doing that. She's a blogger as well, but not in the genealogy field. So looking forward to that. I will see you next week, next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and for our next YouTube Live. I look forward to talking to you then, and have a great day. I'm going to go ahead and sign off because we have a big old storm that is heading our way in the next minute or two, it looks like, out that window. So have a great day, guys. Stay safe, and best of luck with finding your ancestors. Have a good day, guys. Bye.